So welcome to the demo app tutorial on app BTRI DE, and let me walk you through what you need to use the app and how it all works. So anything you do on the blockchain, you need to have an identity. The identity on the blockchain is basically a key pair, and the key pair consists of a public key and of a private key. Those are the two components you need to create assets and to encrypt them and store them on the blockchain. So basically the public key you need to see assets that you own or to receive assets from others. It's basically your address that things are being sent to. The private key, this is your signature. This you sign transfers or you create assets, or you change the data that goes along with the assets. We call this data the metadata. And once you have the key pair, you also need to be able to store it so that any later point you can come back and use it. So you can either write it down on a piece of paper, which is the very safest thing to do, keep it in the safe. Not very practical though, since the numbers are pretty long. You can also save it as a JSON file, which we will provide for you as a download. And to make it even safer, we have encrypted the private key in the JSON file. You can also just copy the file from the page, the keys from the page, save them somewhere you like, in a WordPad or something. But please make sure that the private key is encrypted when you do that. So now you have the identity, you can go ahead and actually create an asset. So the question is, what is an asset? So basically on the blockchain, everything is represented as an asset, and the asset that you create can have different properties, and the properties can have different values. So you can freely choose the properties and how many properties you give the asset, and you can freely choose the values, and those two things can be chosen freely once the asset is created. The notation of this is in JSON format, which stands for JavaScript Object Notation. It's the one with the funny parentheses. I'll show you an example in a second. So you know what an asset is? Let's create one. To create it, you need to give it a name and you need to give it properties. And if we look into this example here, let's create an asset with the name Coffee Maker. So that's my coffee maker, and let's give it the property who made it. I call it maker. In this case, it's a DeLonghi. And give it the property, does it make good coffee? Makes good coffee. The value is yes. So now we've created this asset. We can also add some metadata, so that's data that goes along with the asset and can be updated later at transfers of the asset. An example could be coffee maker currently full of coffee. No, it is half full. And when was it last refilled? Oh, a long time ago. Coffee is probably very old in this machine. So this metadata can be changed with every asset. So if I transfer it, I would update the metadata and probably say the metadata new last refill, not August 2017, but maybe now, or the date of today. You can transfer it to somewhere else as well. And with that transfer include information about price, date of transfer, and other things that you wanted to include in there. So you have the asset, it's yours. You're the owner locked on the blockchain, you can transfer it. So you can transfer an asset only if you're an owner. It's a condition that the asset is transferable. And it's the crypto condition. For transfer you need public keys. And your own, because you're the sender, and you need the receiver's public key. So you need to ask the receiver to give you the public key, or you need to devise a clever way how to look up the public key of your friend that you want to send something to, and we've developed something that helps you there. And you need your private key, because your private key is what you need to sign the transfer. And everything needs to match in order for the blockchain to allow this transfer and actually fulfill it. So now the asset is transferred, and basically you can set up as many assets as you want and play around with it, transfer them back and forth, set up a couple of identities if you want, and just try it out. And to help you do that, we've also created two helper functions, which is the wallet function. And within the wallet function, you can see all the assets that you own, and you can select an asset for transfer either to yourself or to somebody else. But the asset number, the asset is identified by a very long ID number, so we've also added some other things in there, which is the asset data, which describes the asset. In this case, the coffee maker, and it's the asset metadata, which lets you see the transaction history of the asset. In this case, when was the coffee refilled? Did it make good coffee? At what point did it stop making good coffee? So you could trace that back. If you had set up the coffee beans as an asset, you could trace back where they came from, who roasted them, and so on and so on. And then it lets you select the asset for transfer. The other problem is how do you get the long public key of the receiver user? So we've built a function that lists all the users and lets you also select then the long number of the receiver to transfer the asset to. So that's it for our tutorial on how to use the demo app. And go on the website app.btri.de, play around with it, and let us know what you think. Thanks for listening.